All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, we want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Barakah Akwadash. Double honor to the apostles and out of the great millstone. Peace, love, salutations, and blessings to the house of David, which is the elect. All right, coming back with another Sabbath Sanctuary, episode 49, entitled, What Else Do You Need to See? All right, Lord willing, this be edifying unto the elect through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. And as of course, through the spirit, going through, prophecies, right? Keeping the elect, aware, right? As the scripture says, to be circumspect, right? Knowing, redeeming the times because the days are evil, right? Knowing what the will of the Lord is, right? And as we're seeing, we're going to need divine intervention. We're going to need Yahweh Shai. We're going to need to be, on the Lord's good graces on His good graces side in order to endure and to be able to, make it through the things that are happening in these latter days. Um, so we're just going to just roll through the spirit, right? Don't really have a particular direction, but like I said, as the title reads, there's so much stuff is happening. It's like for those that are still doubtful, those that are still, in a mindset of, unconvinced. It's like at this point, like what else do you need to see in order to realize that the word of the Lord is faithful and true? Because everything that is happening, you can literally link it up to the scriptures. You can find the scripture to match the a certain any situation that you see taking place, right? Whether it be the uproars of the people, whether it be the wars that are happening, the financial instability, right? The grinding season, everything that is taking place, the reality of the life of the world is all have been preordained by the word of the Lord. And there was a video that I saw earlier today from Dabu Seven, which he basically was speaking. Excuse me, speaking about ICE is coming from Bloomberg, right? So a very prominent news source says that ICE begins, and I'm reading the title, ICE begins buying mega warehouse detention centers across the US, right? It says plans for such centers in jails and nearly 2 dozen communities have sparked protests over suitability, proximity to homes and schools. So you have, ICE basically, as it says, buying, which is all being funded by, the federal government, of course. The Trump administration is setting up these, what they really are, detention centers, right? Detention centers, concentration camps. Um, and right now they're saying it's for immigration, but as they were saying, and I was watching this video, they were saying when this whole thing first started, they were, exporting or, deporting rather immigrants like immediately. So why all of a sudden do you need detention centers to hold so many immigrants if your whole idea was to get them outside of the country? And what they basically were saying was that these detention centers were, basically being set up for, um, as Trump put it, the homegrowns, right? There was a article, I mean not article, a video, which I'm gonna see if I can pull it up on the chat, but I have it here where back in was that August when Trump and Pete Hegseth addressed the admirals and the generals, he basically told them that the whole ICE situation could be used as a training for the enemies that are within. And he mentions basically that you have people that are in America that are going to need to be handled. And when you look at how everything is being moved and how ICE is moving and how they're labeling domestic terrorists, Salakia, how they're labeling citizens as domestic terrorists and enemies of the state, it goes to show you that what they're doing with this whole immigration is actually, as he said, a training for the civil unrest and the uprising that they're expecting from the citizens themselves. So these detention camps and these centers are not going to just be for people who are quote unquote illegal, but anybody who they deem as being um, domestic terrorists, whether you are a citizen or not. And that's why he's been speaking about, getting rid of people's citizenship based off of, you know, whether or not they are descendants or whether or not they are, domestic terrorists. They're coming up against the system. Anybody that ultimately is against what they're doing, they're going to be, labeled as the enemy of the state. And these things all tie back into what the scripture speaks about, even what Yahweh Shai, warned about in Revelation, the second chapter, which I'll pull Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. Yahweh Shai told us, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. So, these are the words of our Lord, letting this is the church, the message to the church of Smyrna, but we know in these latter days, the believers embody this spirit, right? So these letters that was written to these churches are basically amongst the elect right now. So the Lord is letting us know that when this time comes, that the devil is going to cast some of us into prison, right? And it's going to be unjustified. It's going to be, sloppy. It's going to be, him coming in a way that's going to, not be fair, but yet because of these policies, because of these, various different situations and things that he set up, he's going to seem justified in doing it, Salakia. But the Lord told us to not be, troubled, right? Not to be fearful, right? And we have to endure these things because this is all a part of, the being a witness for Yahweh Shah, right? Being faithful unto the gospel. Okay. And when they come, and they're definitely going to come right at those that are speaking the gospel, speaking the truth, right? Speaking against, their agenda, right? When they come, the Lord told us to be faithful unto death. Because some of us may be put to death, but some of us may be presented with death. Not everybody's going to be put to death, but the Lord may have the devil present us right with the option of either bow the knee, whether you renounce the gospel, or you have to be presented with death. The Lord told us that we gotta be faithful even unto death, and He will give us a crown of life. Being willing to die for the name of Yahweh Bashim Rashad. So that's the times that we're in, and I'll leave it from there, and whatever brothers got, we can just jump in.
Yeah, Khan. I got a precept based on what you speaking on, with all the things that are taking place on the earth right now. This is Isaiah chapter 10, verse 3. And what will ye do in the day of visitation, and in the desolation which shall come from far? To whom will ye flee for help? And where will ye leave your glory? All right, and applying that to these people today, right, in the time when the Lord begins to turn up the heat, all right, and visit you with the sword, because oftentimes when the Lord mentioned the sword, it was never like a flying divine sword that just came and cut people. It was typically the sword of an enemy that the Lord would bring to actually slay, the people. Now, in the modern day sense, they don't walk around with machetes per se, but with guns. And so when you see what's going on, like I thought about the precept in First Thessalonians, as Paul was writing to those in Thessalonica about the sudden destruction, and it mentions how it's going to be like a woman in travail, and they shall not escape. And what's interesting is you have people that the Zaquan you mentioned about how in Trump and Hegseth's speaking, they mentioned how this can be training for the American citizens. And so you have a lot of so-called American citizens that are out there protesting, thinking that they're okay, so they can hazard their lives for the sake of others who are not okay. But they don't realize that one day you're going to go into the street thinking that, okay, I'm not their target, so I can hinder them and they're not focused on me, but I can be enough of a distraction to help whoever it is they're focused on escape. But one day you're going to go and do that, and you're going to see that they're not going to be going after the people you think they're going after. And instead, they're going to come directly for you. And they're going to grab you up and they're going to throw you in the back of a truck somewhere. And they're going to start rounding you up. And they're going to come to your houses and pull you out your houses. And it'll be a surprise, a very surprise turn of events, because that's the point where you're going to realize, wait a minute, you don't have immunity. You are now the actual targets. And those that before you thought were the targets who you were trying to help are not even, they're just like an afterthought now, because they were a stepping stone to cross the threshold, right? Or cross the Rubicon into a world where now the American citizens are no longer immune. All right. And now you have become the targets by being labeled dissidents. So if you notice what the things they're doing is, as these conflicts escalate, they take steps as well, like the Zaquan just brought out about them investing in these bigger like warehouses and these storage spaces for detention centers. And it's like, if they're doing that, then they don't have any signs of stopping. And they picked one of the perfect conflicts to use, because this is different than like the George Floyd protests, right? Or certain protests in the past where people are protesting for Black Lives Matter or a certain cause. This is an after effect, right? The dude is already dead, and you're protesting because you're mad at the way it happened. You want justice. You want the cop that did it to be in jail. This is different. This is an active attack, so to speak, on the people. So these people are going to continue to revolt and go back against federal law enforcement, so long as the federal government says we're still trying to do our job and we're still going around apprehending people. So now it's to the point where you have high schools and different schools that are doing walkouts and quote unquote protesting against ICE, and it's just escalating more and more and more, because this is the kind of conflict that can continuously escalate. It doesn't need to, like, there is no stopping point. The stopping point is one side backs down, but that doesn't look to be the case, because the more the people think they're going to back down, the more oppressive ICE gets, or the federal government gets. And the more the people rise up against it, the more lethal the federal government gets. So you don't have a choice in this matter. So as it says, that's why it says, what are you going to do in the day of visitation when they start turning their guns on you? Because you're already seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 events like that. It shows you what direction they're already headed in. And Trump already came out and said that he's basically giving them the go ahead to be more forceful and to be more aggressive when it comes to defending themselves against these rioters and and protesters. And this is why it's needful for us to continuously speak on these matters, because you then don't have any cloak or justification to say you were ignorant to these things. The Heavenly Father sent us out here, and we've been speaking on these same very exact things you're seeing for decades, right? Starting with our elders and apostles on down to where they were even mocked for it. All right. They were mocked for speaking about FEMA camps and detention centers. You can literally go and find those old videos on YouTube of them speaking on it. And now those very same things are happening. So this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 62, verse 6. I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day nor night. Ye that make mention of the Lord, keep not silence, and give him no rest till he establish, until he make Jerusalem a praise in the earth. So our job as watchmen is to continuously speak on these matters, to warn you of what's about to happen. But guess what? The watchman is not going to stay on the watchtower while the city is being destroyed. His job was to warn you before the enemy got there. After that, he's gone. And the scriptures say, when you go to the book of Jeremiah, the Lord said that I will cause the enemy to entreat thee well. So when you look at the situation with Jeremiah, he was in it, but he wasn't worried. He wasn't concerned. When the Babylonians came in there, they treated him like he was good. They treated him like he was good. They said, look, what do you want? We can take you with us and we'll take care of you. Here it is. Your people are being slaughtered, right? They're being shackled and they're being carried over as slaves to another country. And the enemy that's doing that is asking you, would you like to come with us? And we'll take care of you. You'll be good. You'll be set over there. You ain't going to have shackles on you. Or you can stay here if you want. Whatever you want to do, we'll let you rock. And that was the spirit of the Lord that did that on Jeremiah's behalf. Why? Because his job was to come and warn them and speak, and then that's it. He wasn't a part of that aftermath or that calamity. So our job, in like manner, is to come and speak. And once we're done and we've done the work of the Lord, He's gonna pull us back and He's gonna let the floodgates open. But yeah, that was it.
Hey, I sure if you have something to say, you can go ahead because I wanna. If anything, Zaquan, if you don't mind, I'll read the article. But I'll get a precept to lead into the article. So I sure if you have something, you can go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I did have a
precept. I already stole precept.
Makar Moth took my precept, so I got another one. I got to back up though. I had to think on my feet real quick. But this is Isaiah 56:10. His watchmen are blind; they are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark, sleeping, lying down, loving to slumber. So, as the brother was going into, the true watchmen, they are the ones on the walls watching. All right, not ceasing to mention these things. Not ceasing to warn, not ceasing to prophesy, not ceasing to bring forth the word of the Lord, which is the warning. All right, the trumpet. Okay, cry aloud, spare not. Right, that's what the true watchmen are doing. But on the flip side, you have other watchmen where these things are going on and as though they can't see. They literally, it is happening right before their eyes, and it's as though it's just like this. They just, all they see is their hand in front of their face, man. Or they see it and they'll just act like they don't see it. They'll try to be they'll try to turn a blind eye to it. Right? But it says they are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark. So we supposed to be barking at all these things that's going on. Jacob's trouble, the troops coming down. This is as madmen sparing none. You see the beginning stages of that coming to life. This is what they're doing. The Zaquan had shared the article about the 5-year-old that was in custody. Is that what y'all were holding to go into? Okay, Con. So just to mention that on the side, they had a 5-year-old, and there was a picture that kind of went viral, and it got fame online. And he was in like a child's hat, had like bunny ears and shit, and a little Spider-Man backpack. And they had him like he was like he was El Chapo, in the cold, man, in the brick ass cold. They don't even cover him up, nothing. Just have him out there, and then they took him down from, I think it was from Minnesota. Then they took him to a detention center in Texas, and in that detention center, his health deteriorated, whatnot. And it's a lot of these things that's going on, and our people are turning a blind eye. A lot of them, man. A lot of you Northern Kingdom Jakes, you've been able to so-called live the American dream. You've been able to live the American dream. You don't consider the plight of the rest of your people. They've been able to, like them niggas that was over there doing the Trump video talking about Viva Donald Trump, and now they were the first ones to get deported. All right, looking stupid. Okay, so we know that this is the judgment of the Lord at the end of the day. At the same time, though, our people they don't have compassion and mercy, man. All right, and they don't want to focus on what's going on with Jake. All right, yeah, I will vote for Donald Trump. That's what Jake was all on, stuck on that type of timing. All right. And doing the salsa and all types of dances on the boat. And they took that whole boat and just, threw y'all in Guantanamo Bay for all we know. Where the hell? We don't know where they take you to. You disappear off the map. Okay. But who is actually blowing the trumpet and warning about these things? The dumb dogs is not. They're worried about going on the podcast with Adam 22. They're worried about debating about who got pegged and who didn't. Okay, that's really that's some I'm just saying, it's some whole ass shit, man. A lot of these niggas should sit down when they pee, man. They're how bitch made they are, man. But sticking to the script, I'm gonna read this and I'll give it up to the next brother. Isaiah 56:11. Yea, they are greedy dogs which can never have enough, and they are shepherds that cannot understand. They all look to their own way, everyone for his gain from his quarter. See, and that's what it's all about: clout, gain. Okay. And the Christian pastors, man, where they at? You know, where they at to speak out against it? Where they at to speak out? And Latinos are the ones that built this country, along with the so-called black men and the West Indian and Haitian tribes. Okay, built this country, living here first, the Native Americans and the Latinos. But here it is, they make you out to be the enemy. That's why it says in James the 5th chapter that the ones that have reaped down your fields, their cry has gone up to the Lord of Sabaoth. You know, because even though Jake is wicked, at the end of the day, this is still the Lord's people. You know, so they're going to be, you know, they're going to get their judgment for what they've done. But you're not going to go out. You're not going to go blameless for what you're doing and oppressing the children of Israel. Okay. So they're out there reaping your fields. They're out there doing the jobs that nobody wants to do. And then they turn around and say you're illegal on the land that you lived on first. Okay. After they genocide, grape, rob, and murder your whole people. Okay. So we see that in this world, we're not going to get any type of justice. The only justice we're going to get is from Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. That's why we're speaking on these things as watchmen, warning you, speaking the prophecy so that it can come to pass. All right. Because if nobody speaks it, how can it be a prophecy? It has to be said before it happens. So the Lord has to put the spirit on men, and they have to have a fervent spirit to continuously say it ad nauseum. You'll get sick of hearing it. All right. But we don't get sick of saying it. Okay. So at the end of the day, you know, these greedy dogs, they're not going to speak on it. All right. But we are going to speak on it. All right. And as long as the Lord has the spirit on us, we're going to continue to warn and let you know what's going on, man. But you got it.
Hey, Khan, hey, Shalom, Yabashim, Yashabrakatam. Hey, Yabaz is going into how, you know, these false prophets are really not barking. But the thing that we're about to go into right now, the article we're going to get into, and I believe, Zaquan, you have a video as well queued up, right? So all these things are all tying in, and everything we're about to go into, all right, is something that we've been barking about. All right, if you want to use that phrase, we've been barking about, meaning prophesying and warning. That's what a dog does. When a dog is barking, he's warning, he's alerting, all right, his owner or those in the house that, hey, there's danger that you might want to pay attention to. At least something that's unusual. That's why I'm barking to alert you. At least come check it out. If it's safe, we're good. If it's not safe, then you know what to do from there. So that's why the Lord sent the prophets. Every single time, the Lord always sends prophets to warn his people and to give warning to everybody else. That's why it tells you, he says, what, you're going to shake your hand at the nobles, at the gates of the nobles, right? In the ancient custom, even in our custom, when you have a parent that shakes his hand at you, it's a sign of warning. Be careful, right? If I got to do this, that means be careful. I'm talking to you. Be careful, because if I got to get up from my seat and come talk to you, it's going to be different type of talking. All right. And the Lord is using the prophets. The moment you see the prophets, this is what you're seeing. And that's why people despise the prophets. Okay. Every time you see that, it's like, oh, here we go with these niggas again. Right. But we have to do this. It's a mandate. Okay. We don't have a choice in this. And everything that we've been prophesying about for all these years, we're starting to see these things play out. And the games are about to be over. The talking, the laughing, the joking, the scoffing, the debates and all this shit, it's about to be over. Okay? Let me get this real quick, because we are in those serious times that we've been prophesying about. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 12. And as we bring out these precepts, it hits home closer and closer. All right? People, real life, everyday people that we deal with, you know, whether it be friends or family members or coworkers, they're facing a lot of these things that we're actually reading about. See, so it's no longer, you know, far off where you're like, oh, yeah, I'm hearing about these things. No, you're witnessing these things. You have people in your family that are going through these things that we're talking about. Okay, so it makes it that much more real. Right? This is a book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 12. It says, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. And that comes with an exclamation mark at the end of the sea. Okay, so that means that's a heavy emphasis on the woe. Okay. And what we're going to go into is also highlighted in 2 Ezra 16. Okay, the burning wrath of the multitude that's kindled over you. Okay, it's a whole lot that's coming with that. It says, "For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath." Okay, forceful wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. Okay, so when you see the U.S. government and their policies and how they're attacking other countries with no mercy, just convert that same energy over here, but worse. Okay, it says a time like never before for a reason. And you have over 300 million people here in America. So that's a lot of fun that the Lord could really have, right? A lot of people that the Lord could really have fun with. All right. But Zaquan, if you have the video queued up, we could jump right into it.
God, yeah, let me pull this up. This is just because I wanted to show what Trump said, back in, should I say, was it 4 months ago? So,
Mm.
a lot of stuff happens between now and months and weeks, and people forget, what is being said. But the prophets don't forget, because this is our job. This is our reasonable service. So when we see these things and we hear these things, the Lord, through the Spirit, we have a mental Rolodex that we, store in the back of our minds. And when we see it come to pass, we're like, oh wait, nah, this ties right back to this. And that's the job of a watchman. So um it's a 1 minute and 50 seconds, but I'm gonna start it at the minute and 2 seconds is basically where he says what he says.
Last month, I signed an executive order to provide training for quick reaction force that can help quell civil disturbances. This is going to be a big thing for the people in this room because it's the enemy from within, and we have to handle it before it gets out of control. It won't get out of control. But I want to salute every service member who has helped us carry out this critical mission. It's really a very important mission. And I told Pete, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military. As president, I will never hesitate to defend our people from threats of violence, from the horrible plague that's taking place from within.
So yeah, that's basically it. But what he said, the point is he said use these cities as training grounds, right, for the military and the National Guard, right? So what you're seeing is that basically being put manifested right in front of you, right? And this is why, as we're going to go into the article, why they have, these concentration camps, why he's talking about the Insurrection Act, because what they're doing with these migrants and going after fraud and all these things and just setting the groundwork for having a police state, right, a militarized police state in these urban areas, so people get used to not having to deal with your regular everyday police force, but you'll be dealing with a militarized army police force, aka a martial state, right, a martial law state that is being normalized in society. But yeah, you got it, Haran.
Con. So we're gonna jump right into it. This is from Bloomberg. The title goes, ICE begins buying mega warehouse detention centers across US. It says plans for such centers and jails in nearly 24 communities have sparked protests over suitability, proximity to homes and schools. Despite protests in small towns and cities across the US, the Trump administration is pushing ahead with the purchase of warehouses it plans to convert into immigration jails in what could be the largest expansion of such detention capacity in US history. It says the cost for acquiring 2 warehouses alone was $172 million. A third in El Paso, Texas, could be among the largest jails of any kind in the country if completed as envisioned, with 8,500 beds. The deals mark the latest turn in U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement's plan to use as many as 23, here goes the numbers, 23 warehouses for detaining thousands of immigrants arrested by federal agents in Minneapolis and other cities. Now, we're going to pause for a second because Trump, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, he was debating on basically stripping away the citizenship of actual United States citizens. Okay, and in that case, you have Kristi Noem, okay, pushing this rhetoric of soon American citizens are going to have to prove their identity or their so-called citizenship by carrying their papers around. Okay, that is a very dangerous precedent, and it's the only thing that you could think of is Nazi Germany, the Gestapo stopping people and show me your papers type shit. Okay, that's exactly what they're trying to tell you. Okay, and if they're saying that soon you're going to have to prove your identity by showing your papers and so on and so forth, which is all going to be digital IDs and all that. Then that means that if you don't have that digital ID, then you're not considered a citizen. You could be anyone for what they, based on how they're categorizing shit. You could be anyone. Okay. And in this case, anyone means if you're a dissident, if you have anything that goes against the given narrative, if you have any plans to speak up against what's going on, you will be deemed a domestic terrorist. At that point, it doesn't matter if you have citizenship or not. You have they got something for you. So think of this more as a door, a step into the door, right? We present it as we're going for the illegals. You've seen what's going on. The past two people that they've been attacking, so-called attacking in Minneapolis, they're not illegal immigrants. They're American citizens. Okay. So it's the precedent that's being set. And I was talking to my friend earlier today, and he's somebody who's very oblivious to a lot of these things. He jokes around a lot with these things. But today, the conversation went a lot different, right? I was like, yo, he was like, yo, man, it's been a while since we spoke. Like, you always be on top of this shit. Like, what's going on with this? And I told him, I said, hey, listen, man, what do I see happening in the next few months? I see George Floyd 2.0. We're just waiting for these niggas to attack the next black dude, and it's over. It's up from there. Okay, the same thing that you saw with George Floyd, they just need to shoot one more nigga, and it's over with. It's going to be bombs over Baghdad, and that's what they're waiting for. This is all building to that. You notice they're not really hitting the Jake communities yet. They fucking with Esau in them, all right, to get them up and running. And once they do enough with that, they're going to jump right into your Jake cities. And that's what Trump just said, the video we just watched. We're going to use some of these cities as target practice. Go back and look at Jade Helm 15. That's what this is all about. Okay, start rounding up you people and then send you into these camps. And the camps setting up is what we're reading about right now.
Hey,
Okay.
and just to add real quick, in that same speech, he had mentioned how the enemy, is not wearing like military fatigue, like they're not wearing military clothes. So he said they're wearing regular clothes, so it's harder to basically point them out. He said it would be easier if they had military fatigues, but they're wearing just regular clothes, so it's harder to point them out. What is he basically saying? He's saying they're everyday, average, regular day people, and that's why they're just going to clump anybody, like how the brother just said. That anybody that is the descendant, anybody that goes against this, anybody that has a narrative or idea or an opinion that goes against what they're doing, they're going to be looked at as enemies, as targets, as potential threats. You see, and that's why they're coming after people that have speaking out against it on social media. They're going to clump all that in there as well. You say anything with I think it was in Florida where they had a woman that spoke out against her mayor or somebody, and they had the FBI go to her door because she said something on Facebook that was like basically negative. She wasn't threatening, but she was just saying that's something negative about her mayor. And then the FBI came there. It was like, yeah, we just seen this. We just got to come here and talk about it. So anybody that has any negative thing to say about this current administration, they're going to be, targeted and looked at as being a potential threat. So, of course, what we're doing, right, which is all just speaking the truth according to the gospel, but that's going to be something that they're gearing up to attack as well.
God, and remember back last year, they had something known as NSPM 7. And I did a lesson on it, but I'm just something slight I just want to read real quick because it's all something they've been building up. Okay, it says, I'm gonna jump real quick. It says here, on its face, NSPM-7 is chilling to read. If anyone needed proof that terrorism and political violence, this is all in quotes, are slippery and fraught categories subject to political, ideological, and racial manipulation and bias, well, this is it. Okay, when you start looking at that, racial bias and all that, this is a country that's based on racism. I don't care how you look at it. Oh, Jay-Z's rich. Oh, LeBron, nigga. Listen, the system is set up to keep you niggas down. Simple. All right. You're never gonna be in the same league as Jacob Rothschild and them. That's what we talk about equality. You don't got no rules. You don't get to make rules. You follow rules. And until that changes, you are a subject. Simple as that. Okay? It says here, like the president's investigation into the Open Society Foundations and his order purporting to designate Antifa, right, as a domestic theist organization. When they asked them, Where's the organization at? Where's their headquarters? How we go and find them and talk to them about it? Well, I mean, we're still collecting data, but we have shut the fuck up, bro. We tired of these people and their bullshit. But let's keep going. It says NSPM 7 is a deliberate attempt to sow fear and intimidate and silence opposition to the president's abuses. Okay? But true strength in this country comes not from political leaders engaged in fear-mongering and political vendettas. It comes from our vibrant civil society, which is clearly deteriorating. Ain't no civil society no more. People are not together anymore. Everything is about division and fighting, and it's my way against your way type shit. This is all what the Lord says is going to happen. Egyptian against the Egyptian. And who's stirring it up? Your government is doing that. Saying, oh, it's the Democrats that's doing this. Oh, it's the Republicans that's doing this. There's a government shutdown right now. What are we going to see for the next couple of weeks? Are they going to keep doing the same shit they did a few months ago? Or is it going to be worse? How is it going to play out? Okay? We do know that it all leads into the intensifying of Jacob's trouble. Okay? Because while you people are crying to be heard by your president, he's going to show you a lot more cruelty. The more you cry, the more cruel he's going to be. Okay? It says here, it says activists and communities steadfastly pursuing the goals of equality, fairness, and democracy for all. We must not let ourselves be cowed. All right. And it goes on and on and on, but just a little quick, rundown of what this is all about is basically demonizing Americans who want to stand up for their First and Second Amendments for the most part. All right. Your ability for freedom of speech and your ability to carry, arms and so on and so forth. Those two things is their main problem. That's why you're seeing Israel pushing this whole censorship shit on American people through the ownership of TikTok. And also pushing this whole ideology of your Second Amendment rights is not really a right. Oh, Alex Preddy wasn't supposed to come over there with a gun. By doing that alone, that's a problem. They already sowing the seeds, man. Okay? So everything that we're going through right now is the sowing of the seeds for them to come against American people as domestic teas. Okay? So going back to the article, it says here, those aggressive enforcement actions have ignited clashes with protesters and led to agents killing 2 U.S. citizens. On January 16th, the administration paid $102 million for a site near Hagerstown, Maryland, according to a local court filing. A week later, the government paid $70 million in cash. I wonder why cash, huh? For a warehouse in Surprise, Arizona. The price tags, roughly in line with the industry average for the warehouse market, covered just the acquisition of the sites, which are currently empty shells. ICE still has to pay companies to outfit the buildings with toilets, showers, beds, dining and recreation areas, and then run them as detention centers. Okay? So these detention centers, very soon, if your ass is found on the yellow list or the blue list, you're going to find yourself in these detention centers. If you're on the red list, don't worry about it. You ain't got no detention. They ain't got no place for you over there. You're going to be shot on the spot. Okay? Look at the trailer of Gray State. Remember there was a scene where they had lined up people and then they would just pop in the back of their heads? That's what's going to be happening if you're on the red list. Okay? Some people on the red list, depending on how far on the totem pole of the red list you're on, they're just going to drop a drone on your building where you're at. So this is what we talk about when we say we need the Lord to give us that spiritual power, because that's the only way that's going to make sense to survive this shit. Okay, when the scripture says the devil has come down upon you having great wrath, that's a wrath it's not going to be curtailed. It's not going to be reasonable wrath. It's unreasonable wrath for a reason. It's set to be destructive, right? It's not like, oh, I'm just going to knock you down and then, you're injured. So at least the threat is, no. The threat is eliminated when you are gone completely. You see, Esau, his brutal, true nature is going to show in these days. Okay, this is the days that they've been waiting for. All right, they're bloodthirsty people. Okay, that's what they do. They're bred for war. These are war people. This is what they do. So once your president starts designating agencies and saying this is a Department of War, right? This is the Secretary of War. What war are they talking about? Right? What war are they talking about? When Trump is saying, oh, the problem is domestically, what do you think they're talking about? So you could think everything we're saying is a conspiracy theory, it's a joke, whatever. Nigga, your life is about to be the joke soon. Okay? So continuing, it says, the El Paso site, right, this is Texas, was purchased by the Department of Homeland Security recently. According to people familiar with the transaction who asked not to be named discussing a confidential process. but the sale price hasn't yet been made public. As the political pressure intensifies, some deals are collapsing. Canadian billionaire Jim Patterson's company said Friday that a transaction to sell its 550,000 square foot warehouse in Ashland, Virginia, will not be proceeding. Earlier in the week, the company had said it had initially agreed to sell the facility to a U.S. government contractor, but that, quote, sometime later, we became aware of the ultimate owner and intended use of the building, end quote. It added, quote, we understand that the conversation around immigration policy and enforcement is particularly heated and has become much more so over the past few weeks. We respect that this issue is deeply important to many people, end quote. On Thursday, Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt said he had met with the owners of a warehouse identified by ICE, who told him they were no longer going to sell or lease the facility to the agency. Quote, I commend the owners of their decision and thank them on behalf of the people of Oklahoma City, end quote, Holt said. Quote, I ask that every single property owner in Oklahoma City exhibit the same concern for our community in the days ahead. Well, guess what? Wherever this place is in Oklahoma, you best believe they're going to be over there by force. Okay? It says, the warehouses, many of which originally were designed and marketed as e-commerce distribution facilities, represent a significant pivot for the administration's $45 billion immigration detention buildout. Last year, it relied on tent camps constructed in remote places like the Florida Everglades and an army base in Texas. Okay, and this is, again, you got all these different people saying, oh, we thought about it and then we decided we're not going to give it to ICE no more. Well, guess what? ICE don't really need your warehouses because Walmart has been sitting there for years, ready and waiting for this time, for this moment. Okay, when you look at Jade Helm 15's logo and you look at the Walmart logo, it's the same exact thing. The only difference is the Jade Helm one looks like arrows. The Walmart one looks just yellow bars. That's it. But it's the same exact design, same layout, same shit, right? It's all called subliminal messaging. They're showing you before they do it. Okay. It says ICE pivots to warehouses. And when you look at the picture of it, boy, looky here. When you look at the picture of it, it's a whole lot more in the northeast region, going down southeast, and then down the southern border, and up north from Minneapolis or Minnesota, around the Great Lakes, Michigan, Indiana, around that area, Missouri, all the way down. So it's literally a consolidation of warehouses that's around the East Midwest area, right? That's where most people are at. When you look at the western part of America, there's not that many people. There's just vast land, right? That's where they do a lot of crop cultivation and animal farms and so on and so forth. But in the eastern Midwest part, is all mostly people. Okay, populations is mostly densely populated over there, and that's where they're focused on. Okay, so it kind of gives you a picture of who are the targets. All right, it says ICE pivots to warehouses. Warehouses identified by ICE to convert into immigration detention centers. Okay, it says little has been publicly shared about ICE's plans for the new detention centers in small towns and cities across the country. Already, many residents have voiced opposition, and local leaders are considering options to prevent the agency from using them. The concerns include both immigration politics as well as land use issues, proximity to homes and schools, and questions of sewer capacity and water demand. Given such pushback and the logistical challenges, there is no guarantee each of the 23 sites will be converted. More than 200 people showed up to protest the warehouse plants in Hagerstown on January 20th in below freezing temperatures. One of the most obscene, one of the most inhumane, one of the most illegal operations being carried out by this Trump administration is what they're doing at the Department of Homeland Security and ICE. U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen, a Maryland Democrat, told the protesters, "We do not want an ICE facility here in the state of Maryland." It says DHS and ICE didn't respond to a detailed request for comment. Neither did the companies that sold the properties in Maryland, Arizona, and Texas, Fundrise, Rockefeller Group, and Flint Development, respectively. Are we surprised there? It says there's a little bit more here, and then the brothers have anything to say, we can jump into that as well. It says the 23 proposed sites would range in size from 500 to 9,500 beds. If completed as planned, the larger facilities would be some of the biggest detention centers of any kind in the country. They're neglecting to talk about Fairbanks, Alaska. I believe that could hold, is it 2 million people or 20 million people? It's some crazy number like that. Okay, we can always look into that as well. But it says, for example, the 9,500 bed facility ICE is planning for Hutchins, Texas, could fit the entire average daily jail population of Dallas County with thousands of beds to spare. See, it says, in recent weeks, the federal government has given tours of potential sites in more than 20 cities to contractors and shared them with the designs, including preferred layouts for at least 15 of the sites, according to people familiar with the confidential process. Contractors, the ones who will turn these warehouses into jails, right? Into jails, FEMA camps, concentration camps, jails, were required to send in their proposals for the first sites this week, starting with Hagerstown, according to those sources. To reach its goal of deporting 1 million people a year, the Trump administration has said it needs more than 100,000 detention beds. Currently, so like Zaquan, you said, if you're deporting, why are you concerned about detention? Why are you detaining if you're deporting? What's the point of that? Like, what point are you making with that? I'm going to detain you before I deport you? Oh, okay. It says here, currently, there are more than 73,000 people in ICE custody, a record. The new sites could give the agency an additional 76,500 beds, according to the documents shared with Bloomberg News. To fill all of them, the administration would have to expand immigration arrests beyond what it's already doing, said Emma Winger, Deputy Legal Director at the American Immigration Council. Quote, to reach these kinds of numbers, they will need to go out into the communities and find people who've been living their lives and been here a long time. In other words, the American citizens.
Yep. I just wanted to add, and that's why the Trump administration got the green light to go into people's houses, right? As the scripture said, that they should cast them out of their houses. It's not just about illegal, criminal, dangerous illegals, right? What he tried to say, who he was targeting. It's going far beyond that right now. You know, it's far beyond just that whole. We got to get the most dangerous, aliens out of here. And this whole thing was all set up. You know, I was talking to the brother earlier today about how leading up to Trump's election, all things that was on the media was the illegals jumping the police in New York City. They, lighting the people on fire in the subway, eating cats and all that. And then all of a sudden, you don't hear about that no more. Like, where are these people? Like, where are these people that you was oversaturating the news with? Like, oh, these are the reasons why we gotta, get these aliens, these illegal immigrants out. But you don't hear about that no more. Now you're seeing them actually targeting people that's so-called been here for years, and even also citizens that have been here. Now Trump is talking about denaturalizing citizens that's been here, and that's all just keep stepping stones to getting at actual citizens of the United States.
Okay, come. So continue, it says, Winger said they would have to dramatically increase their presence in communities across the country. And that's what's been the goal from day one, all right, to create a police state. And ICE is the beginning of that police state, the Gestapo, that Trump personal army. Okay. They're not bipartisan or none of that. They're just serving the interests of whoever is hiring them. And I was talking to a friend earlier today, and he was saying the same thing. He was like, yo, man, you noticing a lot of these ICE agents are not even trained, right? They're just people that are they're just getting the jobs. You know what I'm saying? They just bring you in and then, hey, here you go. Hey, here's a job for you. And guess what? ICE is being backed by billions of dollars from the Trump people. Let me just put it like that. Okay, who is? They always say, "Oh, who's funding the campaign?" And that's just smokescreen. Behind the scenes, Who's the one who's doing the lobbying, right? Okay, we need this to happen. We need that to happen. We need this to happen. We're gonna back you with this so you can bring this about. You know, we need to stop really people from engaging in anti-Semitic speech and all this different stuff, right? All that stuff. NSPM7, that's one of them. Look into something known as Project Esther. I went into a lesson on that. Look into that. It's all building up, man. Okay, Larry Ellison owns TikTok now, right? This and he's censoring mad people. You can't even say you know who Steen guy. You can't be mentioning his name no more, right? You can't say Larry Ellison. The detective will be like, oh, what you sending over there? Let's make sure it's safe. You know, we don't want you sending nothing that's safe, that's unsafe. You know, same rhetoric, right? So jumping through this, it says ICE and Customs and Border Protection have already ramped up their presence and arrests on American streets, right? Like Zaquan, you said, what happened to MS-13 and them niggas? What happened to them niggas, right? Alligator Alcatraz. What's up with all that? What came of that? We need to know, okay? It says the estimated 3,000 immigration agents deployed in Minneapolis, St. Paul, is roughly 10 times the number sent last September to Chicago, a significantly larger city. In January alone, federal immigration agents in the Twin Cities fatally shot 2 people, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. At least 6 people have died nationwide since Trump's crackdown began. As the administration increases its law enforcement efforts on the ground, it's also casting a wider net. It's also casting a wider net for the types of people who could end up in detention. Okay? More than 1 million people have had their temporary immigration statuses canceled since Trump returned to office, putting them at risk of deportation. Now, it's very interesting that they said this because who's to say maybe a few months down the line, they say, look, each and every citizen must have a digital ID, right? Now, digital ID means that it could be digitally, you know, fucked with. Let me just say that, right? Who's to say they could just turn off your digital ID and now you go somewhere or you get stopped by somebody and now you can't prove yourself? It's like, oh, it's not in the system. You've been turned off, right? You don't have access to this anymore. You don't have access to that anymore. You're going to be detained until further notice, okay? And woe to you if you're an Israelite. Ooh, boy, look at here. Remember, read the book of Maccabees, man, okay? And it will give you a little insight of how these devils really operate. The Lord's going to stare at that hatred, that spirit. He's bringing it right back, okay? That dragon, that great wrath is coming. It's coming, okay?
They said that there's been talk of people having their passports canceled, and they wouldn't find out until they traveling there in another country, and they wouldn't be able to come back. So a lot of people just have been having their passports, their United States passport canceled, and been having trouble getting back into the United States. So, like how you just said, that's something that they already started doing.
Yep. So right there. So continue, it says, immigration. Oh, right here. It says more than 1 million people have had their temporary immigration statuses canceled since Trump returned to office, putting them at risk of deportation. Immigration officers have also arrested immigrants at routine court appearances and check-ins. More recently, in Minnesota, DHS said it's targeting 5,600 immigrants to re-verify their status claims. Re-verify, not just verify, but re-verify. What does that mean? American citizens are going to be involved in that. We've got to re-verify if you're a citizen or not. Okay? It says, these devils, man, boy, look here. It says, that has resulted in some people with legal status getting arrested, jailed, and flown to Texas for interviews before being released and forced to pay their own way home, according to lawyers and advocates. Okay? It's just crazy work, right? And there's a little bit more. Zaquan, you want us to continue or?
I had a quick point out, not to cut you off, but you know, this whole thing about, you know, deportation and everything, it goes beyond just peace and safety, and you know, we're trying to make America crime free again. The things that they're doing is indicative of a deep-seated hatred. For you to say, all right, we're going to take you in, you know, just treating you subhuman, you know, and then when you're released, you figure it out on how to get back. You know that these people are impoverished, right? But yet the small hat gets billions and billions and billions and billions in aid. But these people are coming here literally saying that they're willing to work. The most hardworking people you're going to find. among the most hardworking people you're gonna find, and yet they're getting treated like dirt. That shows straight up hatred. Okay, and something you mentioned about people going to other countries and losing their passport. They covered something similar in that in the movie The Terminal. I don't know if y'all remember that movie. It's with Tom Hanks, and basically, it's based off a real story of an Iranian man who went to France. I think he lost his passport, or there was turmoil in his country. He wasn't able to go back, so he spent 18 years in that airport, stateless, no state, homeless, nothing. You know what I'm saying? And then you can't really go into France because they don't want to have you, but you can't go back to your own country. So then you're just in like a purgatory, pretty much. You see, so there's things like that people are gonna experience. And these other countries that you get stuck, people love to go to these other countries for tourism. But when shit hits the fan, you're gonna see them niggas come from the dark bushes that's been eyeing you Americans, man, that like to go and be tourists, man. And you don't have no spiritual eyes when you go, So when it happens, you over here thinking that shit is cool, and you get stuck in a country like Mexico or one of these other countries, and shit hits the fan, man, you're gonna be done for. You see?
There's a lot of in Spain particularly, there's a lot of outrage by the citizens of Spain of American tourism being over there, because they basically don't want American tourism in Spain, because they're saying that they're making the prices of food and restaurants go up, because the cities is basically um, trying to appeal to the tourists that have like the American dollar, but the regular people there, they can't match how much things is going up. So they're like spray painting on the wall like U.S. tourists go home, we don't want you here type shit. So back to what you were saying, if you get stuck over there in those countries and they find out you're American, even in France, I seen a documentary where you had American tourists that had like the American hats, like Edomites, and they were basically being told like, yeah, we can't walk around with like our hats showing that we have the American flag because we're getting like berated. People are like looking at us dirty. They don't want us here, X, Y, and Z. So it's not looking good for Americans outside of America, even inside of America. As the scripture says, that a man should desire to go into a city and should not be able to. So all of these things are leading up into that, man. And a lot of people don't realize, what how bad it really is, because it's not really affecting them personally, but on a macro scale, all of these things is just closing in more and more and more. It's like it's so much stuff happening around you that eventually you're going to be in that little mosh pit of just chaos, as everything continues to deteriorate.
Yeah, that's why it tells you in Job 30:5, it says they were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief, right? So America is being exposed, and your citizens are suffering the brunt of your leaders and their actions, because they're all being exposed. This truth is exposed to everyone. Guess what? A lot of people watch our videos from overseas because they're reasonable enough to see that, yeah, everything we're saying is true. You got Europeans, Africans, they're objective to truth. Like, truth is objective, it's not subjective, right? Only in America they teach you to be subjective. Like, there's something called what's the political correctness. Like, you're distorting understanding of words just because you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, right? But other countries, they don't do that. You speak to other people and they speak normal. Like, they don't hold their tongue. They don't bite their tongue or hold their peace just because they don't want Americans to feel bad. Like, oh, he's a TG, but I don't want to say anything to offend him because, oh, nah. They'll tell you straight up, man, you a man, get the fuck out of here with that shit, man. And they'll chase you down if you don't want to abide by that. All right. But this article is very, very interesting. I might have to tap into this on a separate lesson, but it says here, unlike the cities where ICE and CBP agents have fanned out for arrest operations in recent months, many of the locations ICE has identified for its warehouse jails are in Republican-leaning areas. Still, residents in many of the chosen municipalities have been trying to block ICE's arrival. And guess what? These detention centers are going to be in the middle of nowhere. All right. The prophecy in the book of 2 Ezra says that being idle, right, and offered things on, given things offered unto idols. But being idle, that being idle part means that you're being rendered helpless and hopeless. You can't move. You can't go nowhere. Like you've been taken away from your previous purpose. Oh, I'm a worker. I do this. No more. I'm a teacher. No more. I'm a lawyer. No more. I'm a doctor. No more. You're no longer able to execute what you normally did before, and you're in a state of vulnerability. Right? You're at the mercy of the people who've kept you in that facility. Okay, and you could escape the facility, right? You could climb over the fence one in the middle of the night somewhere, which is impossible to do. But if you end up in there, just forget about it. It's the door of no return. But let's just say hypothetically you find your way out. You're in the middle of nowhere in Texas somewhere, like some desert area. Where are you gonna go? How far are you gonna go before they catch up to you? And when they catch you, you're dead, right? So this is gonna be a you know, the most horrifying movie that you sit back and you watch and be like, yo, they're gonna catch this nigga. Oh, that's gonna be you. That's gonna be you, and your heart beating, drones passing over you. They know that you know they've seen you, but you're trying to prolong the inevitable. That's gonna be a lot of people, man. A lot of women.
Robot dogs chasing you.
Yup. Woo! Hey, it's about to get fun out here, man. You know. But anybody have something to say?
No,
No?
I just had one precept. That was it. But
Yeah, fine. You want to bring it up?
It's already passed. No, it's already passed. So let's go.
No? All right. Let me run through this real fast. Right. It says this month demonstrators protested warehouse conversions in New Hampshire, Utah, Texas, and Georgia after the Washington Post published an earlier version of the conversion plan. In mid-January, a planned tour for contractors of a potential warehouse site in San Antonio was canceled after protesters showed up the same day, according to a person familiar with the scheduled visit. In Salt Lake City, the Ritchie Group, a local family business that owns the warehouse ICE identified as a future mega center jail, said it had, quote, no plans to sell or lease the property in question to the federal government after protesters showed up at their offices to pressure them. The government could still take this shit in the name of eminent domain anyway. So at some point, just understand they're going to take it either by consent or by conquest. Right now, we're leaning towards the conquest part. Okay, and they have the power and the ability to declare an emergency, and hence they can take all that shit. You know that, right? Under martial law, you don't have any constitutional rights. Anyway, it says earlier in January in Merrimack, New Hampshire, around 1,200 people protested the conversion of a warehouse owned by a real estate agent, CBRE. In the village of Chester, New York, residents attended a community meeting to call on their leaders to stop ICE's plan in any way they could. The more than 400,000 square foot warehouse that ICE has its eyes on, eyes on there. ICE has eyes on there. Is owned by the holding company of billionaire and former Trump advisor Carl Icahn. All right. It says Social Circle, Georgia, is one of the 15 locations where ICE has shared design details with contractors, marketed materials for the warehouse there, as well as brochures for sites in Mississippi, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Texas, Pennsylvania, highlight the suitability for commerce, distribution, and logistics. Some of them cite their proximity to large stores such as Walmart. Let me read that again slow. Some of them cite their proximity, meaning how close they are, to large stores such as Walmart. Okay? Keep going. We don't sound too crazy now, do we? It says, Eric Taylor, Social Circle's city manager, said this week that he still hadn't received any communication from federal officials about plans there for an 8,500 bed detention center. Taylor said the town of roughly 5,000 people doesn't have the infrastructure to host the planned facility. The city has 17 sworn police officers, wow, and 14 firefighters, and its water and sewage capacity is already maxed out, Taylor said, adding that property taxes on the warehouse would drop to zero if acquired by the federal government. The building is also close to the town's new elementary school. Continue, says, local governments are limited in what they can do to prevent ICE from opening and operating a detention facility, even if it doesn't meet local zoning requirements. That's because federal actions typically supersede local rules, though it can become more complicated when private companies are doing things on behalf of the federal government. Okay? Continue, it says, municipalities will have other tools to stall or exhibit or inhibit ICE's work. The federal government can't force a municipality to build a new public road or other utilities because a facility needs it. And many of the warehouses have their sewage and water systems serviced by municipalities, which means they could have a say over whether it has the capacity to meet a large jail's demands. The Trump administration's push to make 3,000 immigration arrests per day, okay, and its insistence that those uh, adjudicating their cases do so from detention has created an intense demand for jail space. It has gone through multiple iterations of plans to massively expand its detention capacity. In the early days of Trump's second term, ICE leveraged long-standing relationships with private prison companies such as Core Civic and Geo Group to boost detention space. Those companies gave ICE access to additional beds in their existing jails, purchased and leased new facilities, and reopened shuttered ones. Those companies said in November earnings calls that they still have a total of more than 30,000 beds that they could bring online if asked by the federal government. Okay? Not if, but when asked by the
So,
federal government.
so it's back just like how it was in the beginning with these private jails, where they had these deals with the federal government that they make these jail cells, but then they need to basically fill them up, right? And in order to fill them up, they will, create these laws, or they will just get Jake on petty crimes, or make or create laws that get Jake on jail, or even plant things on Jake just so that they can fill up these jail cells. So it's the same thing they're going to do, but with the American citizens, they're going to make laws. They're going to put up Trump up charges, right? No pun intended, to make these detention centers filled, because it's all about the pockets and them getting rich. And in order to basically have 30,000, right? They're only doing 3,000. They said 3,000 arrests per day, but they still have said that they're going to have additional 30,000 beds that they could bring online. Then they're going to need to put a lot of people into these jails. And they said that during the Biden administration, Biden only estimated about 2 million people in. They said they already got rid of 1 million people within this first year. So if they got rid of half of the people that Biden put in, where are you getting? All right, so you got another 1 million left. Then where you gonna get all the rest of these people? The rest of the people are not immigrants, which is why he said we're going after the homegrown next. We're going after the enemy within next. We're going after the denatural. We're going to denaturalize. We're going after they're going to go after citizens. That's what this is going to, right? They're going, and that's why the scripture says that they're going to be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. That's where this is going to. And if you can't see this, as the title reads, what else do you need to see? Like, it's going to have to be you in the detention center for you to realize, oh shit, this is not just about immigrants. This is about anybody that has anything or idea, or it says in Rex 84, a thought crime that goes against what they want. If you liked, right, because what they're doing with social media, they're basically tracking anything that you see or anything that you like, and anything that goes against what they're doing. If you liked it, if you watched it, if you clicked, if you subscribe to anything that goes against what they're doing, you're a target. You are definitely going to be a target. And the only ones that's going to be able to withstand that is the ones that has the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and the faith of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Because everybody else, they're going to fold, they're going to be scared, they're going to be timid. And as the scripture says, those that are draw back, as the Lord said, they're not. His soul will have no pleasure in them. So you're going to have to be firm in the gospel and in an understanding of what this is really about in order for you to endure into the end.
I had a precept to add to what you just said, Zaquan. Psalms 41 and 7 All that hate me whisper together against me. Against me do they devise my hurt. An evil disease, say they, cleaveth fast unto him, and now that he lieth, he shall rise up no more. And this is what they seek to do to the men of the Lord. Those that hate us, they whisper against us. The elites, the technocrats, the powers that be, they whisper against us. Okay. And they say what? An evil disease cleaves unto us. Basically us, speaking the things that we do, that there's something wrong with us. Mentally, we're unstable, so on and so forth. So they're getting ready to bring that accusation forth, the accuser of our brethren. And the biggest accusation is going to come against us, because if they were able to demonize all these different groups, Latinos, all they're trying to do is work. The so-called black men in the West Indian, and you got brothers from West Africa, you got brothers from all these different countries that come here and just, work, trying to live their life. If they were able to demonize everyday Jake, imagine us that have the truth. All right. It's going to be a cakewalk for them to demonize us and to have people believe it. But ultimately, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai is going to preserve us, So we don't worry about none of those things, Our faith is in the Lord, and our faith is going to be tested. So that's why we have to strengthen our faith and pray and stay locked in with this thing,
Con. I'm gonna jump a little bit real quick here. It says at El Paso's Camp East, Montana, now the largest U.S. immigration detention facility with about 3,000 people detained daily, the American Civil Liberties Union and other advocates allege a pattern of excessive force, sexual abuse, and threats to coerce non-Mexican nationals to cross into the Mexican desert. ICE has denied allegations of abuse and said all people being deported are given due process protections, which we know is a lie. Okay. And then it goes on and on, but pretty much the article is pretty much the point has been made in terms of what their plans are with all these detention centers and who's going to end up in these detention centers. We've covered all that over the years and pretty much done that again tonight. So I'm going to end it off there with the article. If brothers have anything else to say, any precepts to bring out, the floor is yours.
Nah. We can close it out. The point, like, we read through it. The point's been made, right? Through the spirit. Um, there really, there's really not much to say. You're going to see it, right? As it says in Ezekiel 12, right? The Lord is going to make that proverb to cease, and in your days, these things are going to come to pass. And as we have been warning. Um, there's really not much else to say about the things that are happening. Once they start to happen, as the scripture says, you're going to know that the prophets have been among you, which is all through the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. We don't boast in ourselves, because we are just messengers of the Lord. And when the Lord gives the warning, it's really out of his compassion and out of his mercy. But as the Lord said, he would not at all acquit the wicked. So when these things happen, just know that, there's no cloak for your sins. For those that are scoffers, those that are, thinking that what we're saying is BS. What are you going to seek? And these devils, they're planning and they're mapping out. They're spending billions and millions of dollars to have these things happen. So they're not playing around either. So as the brother said, this is very serious times that we're in. The only thing you could do is just, trust in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, get right with the Lord, and hope for his mercy. But the wrath is also coming as well. So, we'll close that out, Lord willing. This is edifying unto the elect, giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakak Wadash. Till next time, Shalom to the house of David. Shalom. Oh.